Please don't forget the money, man.
All my blessings, 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 all my blessings.
I need my blessings every penny.
Celtics Bucks, arguably the top matchup in round 2 here. The first quarter saw both teams go on 8-0 runs as the defenses both made adjustments. Giannis was forced into a couple jumpers, a skill that he's certainly been working on. Teams both struggled to operate in the paint initially, which continued to exclusively be a Boston problem moving forward. Tatum was a little slow to the party, 9 points on 3 of 10 shooting in the first half. Al Horford was really MVP the first half and might be one of the most important guys of the series. He's one of half dozen guys that will be on Giannis defensively. He accounted for 18 of Boston's 55 contested shots. On offense, he's running the floor, constantly getting out of the wreckage in the paint to an open three, setting strong picks, making pretty good passes outside of a few negative plays. Statistically, he had 12 points, all off of three-pointers, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, a couple blocks, a steal. Second quarter was a little bit crazier. Celtics had a whole boatload of turnover issues. Tatum hit a few big shots. That's when Tatum finally started to get going. Giannis was able to get the ball moving in transition off of the created turnovers, and he was second in the NBA this season in creating 3-point attempts due to the collapse of the defenders in the paint when he's plowing through there, and that was no different in the second quarter here. Grayson Allen also chipped in 3 threes off the bench. The Bucks ended up 18-6 in the fast break point edge at the half, and they led by 10. We did have Marcus Smart with a stinger just before half. He came back in. Looked like his arm was kind of dead there, but he came back okay for the second half. Second half was more of a slog. The Bucks shot 37, 14, and 60 from the field, 3 and free throw lines. The Celtics were 32, 36, and 78. Boston made 6 more three-pointers, but lost 101 to 89. Now, Boston made 28 two-pointers, which was second fewest made in a playoff game this season. They also attempted 50 three-pointers, tied for 10th most in a playoff game. The Houston Rockets, 2020 Houston Rockets still hold the record with 58 attempts in a Game 4 loss to Oklahoma City that season. The Bucks ultimately held the Celtics to 33% shooting, 36% from 3. The turnover margin was comparable, 18-14. Milwaukee had fewer turnovers, but the difference was getting out in transition and running the floor for Giannis and, of course, creating those 3-point buckets. A 28-8 fast break scoring edge for the Bucks and a 34-20 scoring edge in the paint, as the Celtics were just pushed out and really didn't do a good job in operating and trying to either get defenders to kind of collapse on them by driving, in Jason Tatum's case, and kind of creating kick-out opportunities. There's just some different strategies that they can do to kind of get in the paint moving forward. Tatum finished with 21 points, 6 boards, 6 assists. He really needs to shoot more, be more aggressive. Brown had 12 points, 9 rebounds, but had 7 of the Celtics turnovers. Marcus Smart shot terribly again. He had a knee injury. We'll see what happens with that. Robert Williams wasn't much of a factor and was kicked by Giannis in the nuts at one point that had him limping around for 7 moments until a timeout was called. And it was really the most consecutive moments of camera action he received all night. Off the bench, Grant Williams hit a couple threes, had a few defensive positions on Giannis. He really just reminds me of a fire hydrant, and Giannis just kind of trying to maneuver around the fire hydrant while he's trying to do some kind of sick parkour acrobatics. Giannis himself finished with 24 points on 9 of 25 shooting. He looked fully capable of scoring more, and it's looking clear that he'll have multiple 40-point games in this series. Not much is able to slow him down. Obviously, the 50-point explosion and the closer for the championship last season, and there's indications that he'll be able to do the same in this series as well. Again, not great shooting numbers, but you're certainly seeing the glimpses and the times where he kicked the ball out where he probably could have driven it more, and he'll just be able to kind of moving forward see the different either switches or different bodies coming at him, and he'll certainly have more efficient games and more aggressive games and the ability to certainly put up higher scoring numbers, higher usage games coming forward. moving forward throughout this series, where he will just be even more of a dominant force despite the box score numbers for this game one. Moving forward, he'll certainly have his 40-point games, 13 boards, 12 assists, 2 blocks. He did have 5 turnovers forced by that defense, a few questionable passes, but that's something I wouldn't move away from if I were him. Drew Holiday was the unsung hero, excellent defensively, and still put up 25 points and 8 of 20 shooting, 9 boards, 5 assists, 3 steals. And no one really emerged as the third scoring option, another option here with Middleton being out. Portis was 6 for 12 with 15 points and 11 boards. We started Brook Lopez, Portis, and Giannis on that big front again. Grayson Allen, Pat McConnington, Javon Carter each played 20-plus minutes off the bench, shot a combined 9 for 18 from the field. On the Celtics end, the Bucks do all the most three-point attempts in the league and aren't real great at stopping or challenging them. So it's no secret that trying to knock more of those shots down and get more of those opportunities will be a key. And one of those ways will be really trying to just force their way into the paint and create some different opportunities there, even though they felt like they were shut out in the first game, and just creating some opportunities for themselves to create more open looks from the three and just be aggressive in attempting those. And that transition defense is going to be a difference maker as well. But right now, this is the top series to watch in round 2. Now, Warriors-Grizzlies game 2, we saw Xavier Tillman start next to former MSU alumni Jaren Jackson Jr. over Steven Adams, who's out injured at this point. Gary Payton started for the Warriors in place of Jordan Poole, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green in the starting lineup as well with Andrew Wiggins. Ja Morant started off right, scoring the first 8 points for the Grizzlies, including a couple three-pointers after a miserable shooting night against the Timberwolves. Gary Payton was brought in to help mitigate some of the offensive damage that Ja Morant can cause, and that certainly did help the Warriors. Ja Morant would struggle most of the night in general, trying to get into the paint at all. It's part of the reason he had to pull up for a couple threes early. You could see the Warriors were going to have their opportunities to shoot early against the Grizzlies in the corners. The first 11 shot attempts of the game between the two teams were all three-pointers. Steph Curry was going to have 2 guys in his face early and for most of the night. Klay Thompson started 1 for 6 early and had early foul trouble. Later on, Steph Curry did as well. And we had a 8-point deficit for the Warriors heading into the second quarter. And that was really a tough start for the Warriors to begin the first 3 minutes of the second quarter. Draymond Green was on the bench as well. Jordan Poole was kind of running the offense. And although he finished with an excellent night, until Draymond checked back into the floor for the second quarter, the offense couldn't do much of anything. When Draymond came back, the energy level went up on both sides of the ball. He grabbed an offensive rebound. He was able to come up with a steal, and the broadcast team really applauded Poole, who started to ignite a 10-0 run. The Warriors were down 13 to that previous, and the game was starting to really pull the Grizzlies' way. But Draymond's energy really started to ignite that run, that 10-0 run that was highlighted by Poole's scoring ability. The halftime numbers were comparable, even though Golden State was down by 10 points. Again, at this point, 45 to 44 field goal percentage, 30 points in the paint for the Warriors versus 26 for the Grizzlies, 17 second chance points for the Warriors to 10 to the Grizzlies, and 5 to 7 3-point metric. But Klay Thompson, 1 for 6 shooting, only 3 points. Steph Curry, 3 for 9 shooting, only 8 points. Again, the fouls that caused some issues early. Draymond Green only ended up playing 17 minutes in the third quarter. He got called for a flagrant 2 in a defensive play in which he whacked Brandon Clark in the face and then kind of got caught in his jersey, we'll say, certainly his jersey. We'll say he got caught and pulled him down in just a wild play. It certainly seemed like there was a little bit more action that needed to occur. It was a dangerous play, whether you could say he tried to hold him up or not. The guy was in the air trying to shoot and then all of a sudden being jerked down. I've never quite seen a play like that before. It was certainly flagrant 1. A flagrant 2, I see why they did it with Draymond's history. Regardless, it was not rescinded the following day, to a flagrant 1. So it stands right now that he has 2 flagrants in the playoffs. If he gets 2 more, then it will be followed up. The 4th will be followed up with a game suspension, which is, of course, what happened in the finals. Against the Cleveland Cavaliers when he was suspended for a final round playoff game that really hurt the Warriors' chances to beat Cleveland. How long ago was that now? 2018? The 1 year the Warriors lost to LeBron. The second half was a little bit more frenetic, a little bit more wild. I think we can start to expect that from the Grizzlies as we move forward. Certainly we saw that in the Timberwolves series. When you have teams that play at a high pace like this, we certainly see the turnovers that sometimes come along with it. The Warriors certainly suffer from that problems. But it was definitely more of a frenetic pace in the second half. We did see the Warriors take the lead finally in the third quarter after being down for a good chunk of the game. And Poole and Curry combined for 23 points in the third. Jaren Jackson Jr. hit 4 3-pointers in the third quarter alone and had 14 points. He managed to not foul out of this game. And the fourth quarter was back and forth. Ja Morant finally stepped up a little bit and took the volume of the shots for the Grizzlies. He was 5 for 11, including the final shot at the very end that was very reminiscent of the game winner against the Timberwolves, but Klay Thompson stayed with him all the way through, and the Warriors hung on 117 to 114. Poole ended up on a massive scoring total, 31 points on 12 of 20 shooting, 5 of 10 from 3. Curry had a modest 24 points, hit 5 of his 12 three-pointers, 17 for Wiggins, who was more of an afterthought, and 15 for Klay Thompson, who was only 6 for 19 from the field. And they didn't have a lot of size until they put Kevin Looney in towards the second quarter. And Jonathan Kuminga logged solid minutes as well, about 15 and a half minutes, but relatively small, all things considered. Ja Morant ended up taking 31 shots. He had 14 of 31 for 34 points, 10 assists, and 9 rebounds, but they did a solid job keeping him out of the paint. And he didn't have a whole lot of help. Again, Jaren Jackson Jr. finished 6 of 9 from 3, doing a solid job there with 33 points, 10 rebounds as well. Doing a good job on the defensive end. DeAnthony Melton, who missed the last couple games the last round, had 14 points off the bench. But Desmond Bane and Dylan Brooks, who need to hit shots in order to have any shot in the series, were combined 6 for 23 from the field. And you can't have that if you hope to win it all. So this should be an excellent series moving forward as well. Again, we'll have better shooting nights from pretty much everyone on both sides, other than Jordan Poole, who had an excellent night. We'll have Draymond Green back for the Warriors, and we will have presumably Zaire Williams, who I was not a fan of in the Timberwolves series, but maybe his three-point shooting will be more appropriate here. DeAnthony Melton, of course, back here. So better shooting moving forward, hopefully. Jaren Jackson Jr. staying out of foul trouble would be great. Xavier Tillman was not much of a contribution here at all, so kind of tooling with the lineups moving forward will give us some different gameplay looks moving forward, and I'm excited to see what else will be done in this series as well as far as moving pieces around and gameplay. But the first game, the Warriors survived 117 to 116. It was a 1-point win. I'm not sure all games will be that close. I think the Warriors are just better. I think they just had a difficult night. The offense moved well when Draymond was out, but it did not move well at all when all three pieces of Klay, Curry, and Draymond were out. So we'll see what happens going forward, and we'll see if Kuminga gets a few more minutes as well. I'd like to see if his athleticism and his ability to kind of run around helps out as well. And finally, to the Monday games, which were bad. They were not good at all. Miami, Philadelphia, and Dallas, Phoenix. Of course, we have injuries all over the place for Miami and the 76ers. Philadelphia started Tobias Harris, Danny Green, Tyrese Maxey, James Harden, as we expected. DeAndre Jordan started at center in place of Joel Embiid, who has a smashed-in orbital bone and will be playing with a mask when he comes back, whether that's in a couple games or not. He also has the tore-up thumb, so he's just slowly getting ripped to pieces during this series. The Miami Heat don't have Kyle Lowry. Would he have played if Joel Embiid had played? Maybe, maybe not. They started Jimmy Butler, of course, PJ Tucker, Bam Adebayo, Max Strus, and Gabe Vincent in their lineup. Guys you wouldn't always necessarily know if you're not watching the Miami Heat. Of course, Duncan Robinson didn't get any time off the bench as they're working on that rotation. And flaming hot coming off the bench was Mr. Tyler Hero. He had 25 points on 9 of 17 shooting, 4 of 6 from 3. Bam had 24 points on 10 field goal attempts and 12 boards to go along with that, 3 assists, 4 assists, and a couple steals as well. PJ Tucker did a great job defensively of being disruptive, and we didn't get a whole lot out of Jimmy Butler, who's 5 for 16 from the field. A terrible performance by him. Again, no Kyle Lowry. Victor Oladipo was 2 for 8, only had 5 points off the bench. Not much going there. Nothing much from Gabe Vincent. He had 10 points on 4 for 12 shooting, so just not a good offensive performance for a lot of the Heat players. They ended up shooting 43% from the field, which is, again, not the worst field percentage shooting, considering what a lot of these teams are going through. 25% from the field, 9 for 36 from 3. And they hit their free throws, which was important. And for the 76ers, who trailed up a lot, they were down big early, and they were ultimately blown out in this game. The final was 106-92, and it really wasn't even that close. Tyler Hero got fired up towards the end of the game there. Tobias Harris ended up with 27 points, trying to keep this team afloat. He led in shot attempts with 18, knocking down 11 of them. Tyrese Maxey had 15 attempts, and Harden 13. Tyrese Maxey hit 6 of his. Harden hit 5 of his, which made them 40% and 38% shooting from the field. A combined 3 for 13 from 3. 19 points for Maxey, 16 for Harden. Just not a great overall shooting performance by these guys at all. And the round table at center, DeAndre Jordan and George Niang. Hey, I crushed that. They're going to be absolutely abused by Bam as long as Joel is not out there. So it's just not a complete picture of what we're going to get during the series with no Lowry, no Joel, 2 key pieces. It was a rough night for both squads anyways, but I don't know how the 76ers are going to hang. James Harden is just not performing at the level that max ceiling, high ceiling James Harden has been. Tyrese Maxey is not able to produce consistently at this point. This was maximum Tobias Harris for the most point. Danny Green is not consistently able to knock down shots, and there's just not a lot of contributions anywhere else. And one of the main pieces of Miami's team is at center, and there's no one there behind Joel Embiid. So Miami's not an elite offensive team, but the 76ers are not going to be able to keep up with no Joel. And if he's banged up and really suffering, he's going to be probably tentative about getting hit in the face, getting hit in the arm, getting the shit beat out of him again. So it's just going to be a struggle all the way through for the Sixers. I don't expect us to go 7. I think I called this in 6 originally before the playoffs started. And I'd expect that to be still pre-injury to Embiid. 6 games for Miami to advance. They'll get Lowry back. They'll get some of these guys won't have as difficult time shooting. They'll get back on track, whether it's Jimmy Butler, whether it's Victor Oladipo. Duncan Robinson, who didn't log a single minute, probably because Victor Oladipo's back in the rotation. Kobe Martin got some play. They're just going to have more options and more guys to shoot the ball. And clearly, the 76ers are having issues with that, and their number one guy is operating with one good eye, one good arm, hopefully 2 decent legs, and it's just not going to be a fun series altogether for them. Lowry probably could have played last night, and again, probably just rested because they figured they could win without him. So, other big game, our final game of some significance, I should say. Of course, Phoenix-Dallas. And man, it is the most irritating thing to hear that the second highest usage player in the game, which is Luka Doncic, is not operating by himself here in Dallas. Yet that's exactly what it looks like when he starts to get smothered in these games by top defensive players like Mikal Bridges, and they just don't have anything else really going for him. And you go, oh man, this might not go more than 5. It might be a sweep because it's Luka and nothing else really going here at all. As much as every offseason for the past couple of years, we've been talked to, oh, this player will help take some off of Luka. This player will add scoring. This player, that player. And we just don't have anything. Porzingis certainly wasn't it. We have no junior in here. Tim Hardaway Jr., who's been recovering from a foot injury. And if the Mavericks were to advance, he'd probably be available at some point for the Western Conference Finals. But that's just not going to happen. We had Brunson, of course, who's been a revelation for this team several years into his career now. He was 6 for 16 with 13 points, and he's been an excellent complementary piece. Of course, Spencer Dinwiddie was the big guy that they brought in place of Porzingis, not actually in stature, but in terms of what he was supposed to be able to offer. 8 shot attempts, that was, I think, 5th most on the team here. 3 for 8 shooting for 8 points. And Luka Doncic was forced to play 44 minutes. He had 45 points on 15 of 30 shooting, 12 rebounds, 8 assists, 5 turnovers, but that's what you expect anyways from this kind of high usage player. Maxi Kleber has been adding a lot during this run. He was 6 for 9 shooting, 5 for 8 from 3. That's his game, kind of standing in the corner, getting ready for those kick-out shots. He had 19 points altogether. 13 points for Brunson, like I said. 15 for Dorian Finney-Smith, who contributes a lot on the defensive end. But this team, 47% shooting from the field, 41% from 3, and they still got just fucking thumped. It's just not even really close. 121 to 114. They cut it to single digits in the end, just towards the fourth quarter, just trying to stay competitive. You know, that's kind of Luka's personality and persona in the team. And even being down, 21 points at one point, they were still fighting in the end here. JaVale McGee has added a lot to the Suns team. Again, a backup to DeAndre Ayton when he's out, but Ayton himself has been excellent for this team. He was tied with Devin Booker for the most shot attempts, and he was excellent finishing off the last series. But in this game, 20 attempts, hit 12 of them, 25 points. He's been excellent when he's been able to add to this team. Booker still doesn't quite look right, but 7 for 20 shooting, 23 points. Chris Paul, 7 for 13. He had 19 points. And again, with Ayton coming along and Booker at least providing a little bit, that gives them their full complement of offensive weapons. Jay Crowder shot decent, 11 points. There's 4 for 6 shooting. He doesn't need to take a large volume, but it helps when he's able to knock a few shots down. Mikal Bridges, of course, had the offensive and defensive explosive game where he played both ways to shut down both CJ McCullough and Brandon Ingram in one of the games last series. He had 13 points here and 4 for 9 shooting. We had 17 points for Cam Johnson off the bench on 6 for 10. Exactly what they need. And just a great all-around game by this team. Mr. JaVale McGee, 14 points off the bench, had a couple great plays, a great steal, and a slam. So just a great job all the way around by the Phoenix Suns. And this game it was not even close at all. Not even close. The turnover numbers weren't awful. They were 8-9, so it's very comparable. That wasn't the big problem. The Suns out-rebounded the Mavericks by 15 boards, and they shot over 50% from the field and almost 40% from three. So just a lot of great shooting. And at the end of the day, the Suns are just better defensively, and they just have better shooters. The Mavericks have Luka, of course. Jalen Brunson is a reliable scorer. Maxi Kleber is one of the most consistent guys on the team in his low volume shooting role, all things considered. Reggie Bullock can be a solid contributor. Spencer Dinwiddie hasn't really added a whole lot to this team. He's kind of disappeared. But the Suns have DeAndre Ayton, who's been explosive for 4 straight games now. Even Booker, not healthy, is a massive scorer, of course. Should have received MVP votes. Chris Paul played a perfect game just a few days ago. Mikal Bridges dropped 40 points just a few days ago. Although he's not always focused on the offensive end, he's shown that he can certainly do that. Cameron Johnson's reliable off the bench. It's just the scorers stack up in the Suns' favor. The defense stacks up in the Suns' favor. The rebounding stacks up in the Suns' favor. So the Mavericks are going to get wiped out sooner rather than later. And Mark Cuban is going to have to really find a difference maker, a real ceiling raiser, not just another guy to put on there to make a difference on Dallas' squad for Luka Doncic. I'll have more a little bit later here on the games as they continue, and a few NFL draft notes as I'm still catching up on that, and some of the new music releases as well coming up later in the week. Thanks for checking in on the podcast here. Appreciate it.
Don't forget the money, man.
All my blessings, 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 all my blessings.
I need my blessings every penny. Daily counting every single